No More Silence by Carolyn Burkholder. Page 5. I never guessed that on April 19, 1992, I would ask Jesus into my heart. It wasn't like the days leading up to it had been any better or worse. 3 weeks before, Gerald had become a Christian. I was so glad he didn't have to battle what I was going through. But I felt like an even bigger embarrassment to my parents and the people at church. I had so many people asking me, how did it feel to have my little brother ask Christ into his life when I wasn't a Christian yet? I told them I was glad for him. I never dreamed of telling them I really wanted someone who really cared about me to come alongside me, lead me to Christ. And I got the feeling they thought I should be so embarrassed that it would make me say, I need Jesus in my life. I felt so mixed up. Who is God anyway? I knew people who said they were Christians, but to me, the only reason they said that was so they could be on the inner track, where they could be with other young people, date or go do mission work, and not be treated as a social outcast. Then there were the quote-unquote Christians who were allowed to use you. The more they badmouthed and picked someone apart, the more elevated and closer to God they thought they became. I didn't want any of that. I wanted peace. I wanted to be able to trust someone so I could tell them about the sexual abuse. My mind was so mixed up I didn't know where God started and Satan ended. I wanted someone to stand up and say, this is evil. I wanted someone to protect me. But there was no one. The older I got, the more I thought I would have to scream, I want to be a Christian! I wouldn't be able to say it in a normal voice, like a good little girl. Mennonite girl should. I couldn't come out of a room after talking with the ministry, having an angelic look on my face. I truly couldn't. It was physically impossible. To be clean, I needed to reveal my dirty little secret and the connection I had had with Satan. I knew I wouldn't have a life if I never made a decision for Christ. I really was nailing myself into my own coffin. It meant I wouldn't be allowed to go with youth group. I would never be able to work at a mission. I would not get a job. I would be cloistered at home until I died, wearing 2 braids with my hair parted down the center, embarrassing everyone I happened to meet. I couldn't tell you who the speaker was that Sunday evening. nor even what his message was about. All I know is that when he gave the invitation, people started standing up right and left. I had decided years earlier I would never stand during a revival meeting. I would do it at home alone with only Dad and Mom. After the service, everyone around me was uncomfortable. She still didn't stand. As I walked back toward the door, a girl who was older than me came up and said to me that she was praying for me. I felt like everyone's eyes in the auditorium were on me, thinking, wondering, condemning, staring. I felt like I was being smothered and couldn't get air. I started crying. I couldn't stop crying. I wanted someone to see the hurt in me without me having to spell it out. But all I got were more embarrassed looks. Another girl asked if I would like to talk with someone, which means the ministers. I vehemently shook my head. She told me she would be praying for me, and then she stood there beside me. No one else had done that. They were all too embarrassed for me and likely wondered why I had to make such a show in public. She and I stood there shoulder to shoulder as the tears slipped down my cheeks, and I was comforted. Here was someone who showed she cared, even though she had no idea what was happening inside of me. After a while, I went out to the van. There was no point in standing by the door and blubbering while everyone passed on by on the other side. The van door was locked, so I knew Dad was still inside counseling some young person. I couldn't get the keys from him. I decided I might as well go back into the church house. Don't ask me why I didn't stay by the van and wait. But I think there was something inside me that wanted some adult to come and show me they really cared for me personally. Brenda came toward me and told me I needed to ask Jesus into my heart. I told her I might do it later. Then on our drive home, Brenda said out loud, "Carolyn wants to talk to you, Dad and Mom." I wanted to kick her because by then I had shut down my emotions again. But I knew it was a good thing she had spoken up because now there was no going back. When we got home, Dad, Mom, Brenda, and I went into the living room. I needed Brenda there because otherwise I could not have said with my mouth, "I am a sinner." When Mom and Dad heard that, they took it to mean the relationship between God and I was broken. That was part of it, but I also knew the connection I had with the devil was wrong. Plus, I thought it was my fault that I had been sexually abused. I said nothing about that. I so wanted to know God. After my prayer of repentance, I felt better, but there was so much I was going to have to do on my own. Control my temper, watch my mouth, be respectful, act like Christ was actually controlling me. The next day, when I went to be outfitted with a covering, the lady said, "You look happy, Carolyn." I felt good that I looked that way, but I didn't feel it down deep. Right then, I didn't really care, though. That might come later, but at least I was fitting in with my peers externally now. June 5, 1992. Brenda and I got to talking tonight. She said that I talk too much. That bugs me. Do I really? She also said I put my hands on my hips when I talk and flutter my eyelids. I must change this. Note: toward the end of 1992, Dad and some families from 2 local churches pulled out and started a new church. I fully supported my dad. He told us nothing would change about our clothing, etc. That was a relief. Maybe we would actually have a church who loved one another. Maybe young people would be respected and encouraged. Maybe I would be valued as a Christian. Maybe, just maybe, we would stop pulling each other apart, focusing on crazy things like how many rows of elastic you put in the end of your sleeves. The first couple of months were like that, but once we got into the routine, people all settled back into their chairs, turned their dissatisfied eyes onto one another, and the fur flew. For some reason, we children were the target and could do nothing right. We were like rabbits, hopping here to please this person and there to please another person, right back where we'd started to please the third person. It was craziness. And in my heart, I knew I wasn't following. It wasn't what following Jesus was all about. Chapter 2, page 9. I was baptized February 21, 1993. The church where we had the baptism held had stained glass windows. I was glad we held it there because the one window up front had a picture of Jesus carrying a lamb across its shoulder. I looked at that and felt love, compassion, and peace. Everything that I didn't feel from flesh and blood people at church. The only thing I felt about the baptism service was relief that no one had a concern to hold me back from being baptized. Baptism automatically meant I became a member of the church, and it was the first step toward acceptance anywhere in the conservative Mennonite churches. September 13th, 1993. I almost felt like throwing up my arms and quitting everything that is related to Christianity. I try, I honestly do. I make things right, but it's never good enough. Can someone help me? Why does no one have answers for me? Other than I'm to act like a Christian and read the Bible. I'm going mental, nuts, deranged. I ask God and receive no answers. I have to fight to control my temper. I have to fight to forget what my brother did to me. I have to fight to not be an embarrassment to my entire family. I am so tired. I wish I could sleep and never wake up. I feel a strength in my arms I have to resist and fight to control. If I don't, I'll kill someone. That must mean I'm not a Christian. God, where are you? Don't you care for me? No, I don't think you do. If you did, I would get some answers somewhere. You're sitting up there laughing at me because I feel so angry inside. You're saying I knew you wouldn't last. I knew you had too much rebellion inside you. I'll sit up here, cross my arms, and watch you fail. Mark my words, child, sooner or later you'll have nothing to do with me. I knew from the beginning of time you would never make it. All I'm asking for are some answers. Why do I get so angry? I don't ask to. Why do I throw scissors at people? Why did I hit Dad so hard on the back? Why did I take that sharp knife and stab it toward Mom's face? Why can't I keep my mouth shut? Why do I feel as if I'll start screaming and not stop? Am I a devil child? I feel like people see me that way. Did God actually not create me? Is there no hope for me? I want help. Truly I do. I want to be rid of this anger. But how? I pray and nothing happens. That must mean I'm not a Christian. Because it says in the Bible, God will hear anyone who prays in repentance. That must mean he doesn't think I'm worth listening to. Or it must mean I'm not serious enough about living the Christian life. But I want to be a Christian. I want peace. I don't have it. What am I to do? It doesn't seem to help to read my Bible or pray for 15 minutes. There's no connection there. I guess that's because I'm erased from God's list. I will still fight, though. Is there no good in me? Not even some small part? Oh, I want to believe I'm human, but no one gives me answers. It's all, once you've done this, or once I can see a change, I don't believe you want what is right. As long as you mouth back and get angry, I don't think you're serious about your walk with Christ, unquote. I am not a child. I want someone to care about me now, not only about the way they think I should be. This must mean I'm not human. And on top of that, I'm very selfish. Quote, why do they always have to be about you? They ask me. Pardon me. Why does everything always have to be about you? They ask me. Don't you understand there are much greater matters in this world than listening to you spout off? After all, learn to control your temper and life will fall into place. As long as you keep acting out the way you are, you'll never get married. Unquote. Who says I want to get married? All I want are some answers. Page 12, January 8, 1994. I like thinking that I'm ready for heaven, but then I start wondering if I am. How do I really know that I'm ready to go? What if I remember some small lie I told long ago? Is that from Satan or is that from the Lord? Why is it when I pray I feel as if my prayers go no higher than the ceiling? Only once in a great while do I really feel as if I have communication with God. I can tell Satan to go and leave me alone. But soon I feel the same way again. Is something wrong with me? Am I broken? Or is this the way everyone feels? Why do I feel it so often? Right now I feel closest to God when I'm listening to the Echoes of Memories tape. But soon after, I start wondering if I'm really ready to go. It's all one big vicious cycle. I would really like to ask someone all my unanswered questions. One month later, February 9, 1994. John Hogg Jr., Wayne Martin, and Ray Souter are passing around tapes about demons. They tell the listeners how to figure out whether a person has one or not. It's a good thing Ray doesn't know about my connection with the devil, or he would say I have one. I was glad to hear people criticizing how these guys think they have all the answers. I can hide behind the people criticizing because I am scared Ray, Wayne, or Junior will see it in me. Why, when I think I'm a Christian, is this power still available to me? I haven't used it since the night I became a Christian. But I know it's still there. I can't talk to anyone about it because most people would say I'm trying to get attention, or that I don't know what I'm talking about. After all, I'm living in a Christian home in Canada. I'm not in some mud hut in Africa where demon-possessed people are commonplace. The people who do believe in demons, I'm scared they would say I never became a Christian. So I hide, and I'm quiet about it. April 1994. Carl Torkelson asked me to be his girlfriend. We had went to Messiah Bible School together in March. I never dreamed he would ask me. Does he really want to get to know me better? I can hardly believe he sees any good in me, although I like to think I'm worth something. We started dating and he actually accepted me and wasn't embarrassed to be with me. Life is good. November 14, 1994. I am unwanted and unloved, a fugitive for life. I heard from the time I was a little girl I would never have a boyfriend. Since I have one, something must be wrong with his brain. Sometimes I feel like a worthless good for nothing. Sometimes I wish... trailing off. I know the Lord has everyone here for a purpose, but I'd sure be glad to know what his mind is. What my purpose is. I knew I had to tell Carl about my sexual abuse, but I was scared. I was scared his face would fill with revulsion when he heard. Even though he'd say with his mouth that it didn't change how he saw me, it would. I was scared he'd think there should have been a way for me to get away if I really wanted to. I was scared he wouldn't see me as Carolyn, his best friend, but like trash. So I said nothing, always thinking I would do it the next time we were together. Parentheses. Instead, in March 1995, we broke up. I was so glad I had never told him. This could still be my secret, without anyone knowing or treating me differently. Page 15, December 17, 1995. 6 months after separating from her boyfriend. No one can know how I feel some nights. The hurt aches so bad. I can't cry. I wonder, why did life turn out this way? But I know there is a reason. Somewhere. Maybe through all of this I will grow stronger. More ladylike. More respectful. A person with a deeper longing to know the Lord better. January 1st, 1996. My New Year's resolution is to find myself. I think Brenda and Linda Martin get a kick out of it, but there's nothing worse than feeling like you aren't really doing your part in the world. I'm 20 years old now, and I've been babysitting children since I was 17. I feel loved and accepted by children. They're so simple. They either love you or they don't. These children have parents who love them, though, and I want to help children whose parents don't want them or who have died. I feel like I have something to give them. I can show them that someone loves them no matter who they are or what has happened in their lives. I don't want to live with Dad and Mom for the rest of my life. I want to make a difference in a child's life, but the only options available to me are teaching school or working in a nursing home. Both of those want to make me puke. I want to go to an orphanage. I don't think Dad and Mom really understand that I feel compelled to help a child. They think I need to mature more. I know I do. But is the only place to do maturing while sitting at home? I need goals in my life or I'll shrivel up and die. When do you respond to God's call even though your parents don't understand? I want to feel needed, and I'm not needed here. The church doesn't need me. My family doesn't need me to thrive and go on. I know I must be needed somewhere, but where? February 21, 1996. Sometimes I feel like my arm did after I cut it. I cut my wrist a couple of days ago, all tangled and knotted. I feel like I will never heal inside. Sometimes I have to cry for myself because I hurt so badly within. How can I heal? Pardon me. May 30, 1996. Tonight I feel that restlessness within me that wants to be wild and not all like the tamed down Carolyn I've become. Sometimes I long to be the rebel I was. No one could tame me, and when I was hurting, I could put on a crazy act so no one would know how I was feeling. Everyone despaired of me ever growing up. I was glad on one hand, but on the same time, I wished I could express myself better and let people see how I felt underneath. My oldest brother started dating Darlene in the fall of 1996. We often teased him about her, but we were very excited that he asked her out and that she said yes. I wanted him to find someone. I also wanted him to get married, because then maybe he'd keep his hands off of me. December 6, 1996, 6 months later. Charles and Darlene were here last weekend. He and I sat beside each other while we played the farming game. He hit me. I hate it. It reminds me too much of when I was younger. I let my hand go limp and whacked him back. Darlene said, "Carolyn, don't hurt him." I said, "That didn't hurt," and hit him again. Darlene was shocked. I heard it from Dad and Mom then. That is why Carl quit dating you. Charles said after he took Darlene home last weekend, she asked him, "What is wrong with me?" I felt myself getting hot. I wanted to fly into him until he couldn't get a breath. I decided to ignore him instead, and I don't think he liked that. Of course, Mom came along and stuck up for her precious firstborn. I have tried to tell Mom and Dad how I can't stand it when he rubs his hands all over me. How I feel positively dirty. But of course, they don't understand. Suzanne and I were making cookies. I went over to the sink. Do you know what he did? He came over by me and rubbed his hands all over me. My first impulse was to hit him so hard it would hurt. But I knew that would only cause trouble. I feel like bawling and bawling until the whole house is flooded. How dare he do that to me? Allowing him to touch me was the most awful thing. It felt as if it was killing my spirit. I couldn't do anything. Anytime I hit him, I was told to be kind and respectful. He was always the good guy. I was always the bad one. One time I was working at the stove, and he came over to me and ran his hands over me. Mom was right there. I said, "Mom, please tell Charles to stop." Without turning around, she said, Stop pestering Carolyn. I was confused and mad inside. If a guy I liked did that to me, he would be shown to the door. And I be told I had no convictions. Why is it okay for my brother, but wrong for any other male? Why am I not allowed to fight this? Most of the time, if this happened, I went to a secret place in my head where I didn't have to feel or think. After all, I kept telling myself, it wasn't nearly like what he did to me when I was younger. Maybe this is normal behavior and I'm crazy for wanting him to stop it. Charles and Darlene were married in July of 1997. In August, I went to New Mexico to live for 6 months. I worked at a bakery. Finally, I was doing something other than sitting at home. I was making some new friends. One Sunday, a bunch of us young folk went to the mountains for the afternoon. I didn't want to go because I really didn't know anyone. It didn't suit for any of the other girls because they had to work. I went along. I'm glad I did, because that's where I met Marvin. On the way home, I found out he had also dated once. Everything we talked about on that drive, we agreed on. I seriously thought there weren't any males left whose ideas ran parallel with mine. After I'd been there for 6 weeks in New Mexico and I felt like I was adjusting, I had a meeting with the ministry. They said they thought I didn't have a serious bone in my body and that all I wanted was male attention. That was a huge blow to me. Where in the world is this coming from? I was told I can't date Marvin while I live there. The whole thing was downright ridiculous. I had no plans of dating Marvin. I had just met him and was beginning to get to know him and find out what he believed. The ministry chose to make me move out of the house where I had been living with the other VS voluntary service girls and move into one of the homes of the preachers. Then I was told I had to move back home to Ontario and that none of the other girls wanted me there in New Mexico anymore. If it hadn't been for some of the people living there and Marvin believing in me, I don't know what I would have done. The way they were acting was beyond crazy. But by then, I now wanted to go home too. Dad came to the Detroit airport and picked me up. We had a long time to talk driving home. I felt while I talked that he was believing me. The whole thing didn't make one iota of sense. But I settled down and talked to friends and family. I felt in my heart that I wanted to do what was right. Then in December, Marvin asked me to be his girlfriend. On our second date, we went to a wedding with Marvin's younger sister and her boyfriend. We talked the whole way there and back. Marvin believed a woman is entitled to an opinion just because it is different, and it doesn't mean that is wrong. Wow! I told him about my fear of guns, and how when one is fired, I literally get sick to my stomach. I also told him how I cannot stand to see an animal killed. He was okay with that, and he didn't think I was a loser for feeling this way. He also said he could understand my fears about dating. I'd found my soulmate. Page 21, April 27, 1998. I don't know what made me think about Charles and me, but I felt compelled to tell Marvin about it. He didn't pressure me at all, which made me feel more like telling him. I was still kind of scared because I thought, what if once I say it out loud, I won't be able to block it out of my own mind? I was shaking until I was done, but then I was relieved that Marvin knew. The next day, when he came to my house to pick me up, I was nervous. Would he be able to look me in the eye? He could. He didn't treat me like this was my fault. I prayed he wouldn't bring the subject up, and he didn't. I told myself I had cleared my conscience, and it never has to come up again. Six months later, October 17, 1998. When Marvin says romantic things to me, I joke around because I can't say anything back. Weird, isn't it? I know this isn't normal. Not good. If I was a psychiatrist, I would say there's something in my childhood that makes it hard for me to show emotion or to say, I love you. This is a journal entry that was written only 6 days before our wedding. I never guessed the sexual abuse would affect our married life. I thought that by disclosing it to Marvin, it could all go into the back of my brain and not affect anything. If you don't consciously think about it, it's not affecting you, right? Wrong. Oh, so wrong. Our wedding day, October 23, 1998, was one of the best days of my life. I was marrying my best friend, and it was a huge celebration with family and friends. But our oneness of mind didn't even last the length of the honeymoon. Where had my best friend gone? Why had the wedding day changed everything? I fought tooth and nail. I could not handle the word submission. My definition of marriage was two people discussing things, not one making the decision and the other, me, having to obey, submit. The word had been thrown at me my whole life. If submission means allowing someone to take something from you without your consent, then I will not be submissive. We were two young people who dearly loved each other, but had never heard about working through our past. We continued to muddle through our marriage, not talking to any third party, because I had been told I would have a rotten marriage. I didn't want to hear any "I told you so's." Is this really my fault? Some days I love Marvin to pieces, and I'm so glad we met. But the next day I wish our paths had never crossed. Maybe then I wouldn't be living in this hell. The thought of still living at home and rotting away is worse than being married is, though. So I'll muddle through. We've been married for 6 months now. Marvin thinks we should go for counseling. He's involved in pornography. I'm mad, cross, and hurt. I feel like he thinks our problems are all about me. If I could straighten out my life, he wouldn't be into porn. Rubbish. I don't know of one person who goes for counseling, other than mental cases. I cannot handle another person condemning and shaming me, while Marvin sits there sagely nodding his head. I don't think this is all my fault. Can it be? But then again, maybe it is. There are so many things I do not like about married life. I can't handle Marvin coming up behind me and putting his arms around me. I can't kiss. How crazy is that? But it's true. I feel panicky and sick to my stomach. And then I get mad at myself. What is wrong with me? Marvin thinks maybe some of this could have to do with the abuse. I hardly think about those times, so how can it affect me still? I think there's something deep inside of me that is off, making so that I can't function like a normal female. Because of that, Marvin is into pornography. I wish there was a couple we were closer to, whom I could trust with my life, so that we could talk to them. But there isn't. Page 24. At the beginning of February 2000, our little church closed its doors. Several years ago, an outreach had begun in Brantford. That's 1.5 hours drive away. Dad, as our minister, was asked to move down with a couple of other families. Several months before Marvin and I got married, my family also moved to Brantford. As usual, we had a good church life at the beginning, but then our families started getting targeted. This time, they told Dad he couldn't preach. They excommunicated Dad and Mom. They had no biblical reason for doing this. That was the last straw. I know in my heart this is not what God has in mind for an earthly church. But Marvin's and my marriage relationship is still rotten. And I can't fight two things at once. I just wonder where my head was when I got pregnant. Who did I think I am, bringing a baby into this rotten marriage and a fighting church? Austin Donald was born May 24, 2000. When he was a couple of weeks old, we got together with the Brantford families before we moved. I don't remember what started that particular fight between Marvin and me, but I remember driving the back roads and arguing. Marvin stopped the car, pulled over, told me to get out. I wanted to so badly, but I knew I would have no life for Austin alone. I had no money and no place to live. I knew if I stepped out of that car, I would never ask Marvin if I could come back. I also knew there were many people who had said our marriage wouldn't last. I wanted to prove them wrong. I hated who Marvin had become, but I loved the Marvin I had dated. Was he gone forever? I wanted him back, so I stayed in the car. Two weeks later, June 21, 2000. We had one big blow up. Marvin thinks our marriage is ready to collapse. I cried for baby Austin then, my beautiful baby boy. What kind of home is he going to grow up in? He has a dad and a mom who live together because they can't get divorced. Are we going to be able to mend this before he's old enough to know about it? Sometimes I don't want to make the marriage work. It doesn't blow my mind to hear of couples who divorce within the first 2 years. If I wasn't a Christian and I didn't have a baby, I could see myself thinking about it. Although I love Marvin, it's just too hard to come to an understanding on things. In August, we're moving to Cheyenne, Wyoming. It's so scary to me. I don't know a soul. We really have no option, church-wise. Marvin has some friends from there who talk highly of the church. So I guess we'll move. August 15, 2000. Marvin talked to Dad, and Dad said he and Mom want to talk to the two of us together because they are disappointed with the way I treat Marvin. They said it's all my fault that we're having problems, and Marvin is not to back down on me. I could have bawled my head off. Thank God for Austin right now. He's my security blanket. He makes my world feel settled. But at the same time, I feel very sorry for him, having to grow up with me as his mom. We moved to Wyoming at the end of August, and I feel alone without Brenda or Gerald nearby. I'm so glad Suzanne moved out with us. We live in a trailer park. I spend many hours at the playground swinging with Austin and playing with small children. They don't ask anything from me that I cannot give them. Our marriage has smoothed out. For one thing, we only have each other, so we have to band together. We know which subjects are touchy and we avoid them. One of them, of course, is the sexual abuse. I am very glad that only Marvin and Brenda know about it, because I can almost forget it ever happened. I really think God has healed me, because whenever we're with my brother, I don't think about it. Marvin has started making more friends and hearing that other couples have disagreements and fights between them. For the years we lived in Ontario, he thought there was no other couple who ever fought. I cannot connect with anyone at church. The most important thing in their lives is to have a home birth. God forbid you would go to the hospital. I don't enjoy sewing, cooking, quilting, or vegetable gardening. All the things a good little Mennonite should enjoy. I get asked sometimes, so what do you enjoy? My mind goes blank. And I think, I guess there's nothing. But there is. I enjoy crocheting, cross-stitching, flower gardening, reading, scrapbooking, interior decorating, driving on extremely busy freeways, city living. I feel like they think I have a useless life. But I don't.